So we have finally acquired everything that we need to build the 2023 version of the Team Gfrp Apollo RC drag car. I've got most of the car together here, and I've got a few things to say about it before we get things complete. Maybe some tips and tricks and some discussion on if you should stick with the 2022 or upgrade to the 2023. My name is Chad. This is the Dorky M40 RC channel. We're gonna make you faster today. So it's probably pretty silly just to ask if you should upgrade to the 2023 kit. Bottom line is if you have the money, definitely do that. But if you do not own Apollo yet, you definitely will want to wait. Everything that Dustin has said and a few communications that I've had with him indicate that he's hoping to have this full Apollo 2023 kit available in maybe about 4 to 6 weeks and run for a cost around $850, which is an extreme value considering I picked the worst absolute time to buy the Apollo kit because I had to buy everything here that you see. The floating body mount kit, it did come with the single wheelie bar back here, but the fronted mounted servo, all that stuff, and on top of that, the actual 2023 kit, which is right here. Now, in the 2023 kit, you're going to get a new rear shock tower. You're going to get the block, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. The chassis, of course, and some shorter dog bones, and we'll talk about all the stuff that they've done in the chassis. Now, you do know that if you bought all this stuff right now, if you're able to get a kit, you'd be looking at least $680 plus the floating body mount, forward mounted servo, everything like that. So that is going to be an incredible value that you just can't pass up. But the 2022 is no slouch. So if you see some of these online, or if you see people selling extras at like a discounted price, for example, I've got a chassis, shock towers, all kinds of stuff, shocks that I'll never use that are literally just laying around collecting dust. So you can, maybe spend a little bit of money or pick up a slider at a discounted rate, and that would be a great option for a lot of you if you want to get into the Apollo. So let's talk about this thing. First of all, we're pretty lucky to have such a car like this. It's a purpose-built drag RC race car. And, when we started this whole thing 2.5, 3 years ago now, who would have thought that we would have evolved to this, where every single part that we buy is manufactured for drag racing? It's not taking a Bandit and a Slash, smashing them together, cutting down body posts, and buying weird body mounts and all that kind of stuff just so we can put our Super J bodies on them. Remember those days? Now, some of you, of course, don't, but that's just how awesome it is to have all of these options now, and the Apollo is definitely one of the best options that you can go with. So with the Apollo 2023, you can see the chassis difference here. It's way wider in the front. You got your Velcro straps and all that kind of stuff you can run through, people do for their batteries. It's made to fit your long type of batteries, your wide type of batteries, anything like that. They've got a lower CG motor mount plate as well that is going on there. Shorter dog bones going from like 73 to 67. And then underneath here is where all the magic happens. And I really would like to get a good shot for you guys. But typically you see the red transmission right here. So typically on the old Apollo, the transmission was basically sitting on a spacer. And so it was, giving you a little bit of rise, making your dog bug angle a little bit better, all that. Now what they've actually done is they have incorporated a block in the back here. And if we take a look at it on the GFRP website, it's this little block piece right here in the middle, and it actually raises the transmission and your arms and everything up together, kind of like my DC-1 does. So this is the ultimate performance, allows you to get the car slammed down, all of that stuff, and it's really great. I'm just pretty amazed by everything. If you take a look back here, you can see how everything is just raised up back there now. Got the suspension on there, and there's the block right there that is raising everything up, and you can see the motor mount in its low LCG configuration. And then if we look closely here, you'll see the 2-degree toe and 0-degree squat blocks that are popped up right there, the little red things, and then the little red nut sticking out of there. That's kind of like a mod that some people do that you would want to consider, so that way you run longer screws. I think these are 440 by an inch or close to an inch. to get them up above and through the toe blocks and then put a nut on top. These seem to like to back out a lot. Also, if you have a crash and you whack this back here, it could have a tendency to break that off. And if you don't have something to grab onto from the top to unscrew that screw, then you're basically just out of a toe block. So just the first build tip right there for you on everything. Now, building the Apollo or the 2023 conversion here for me has been a little bit different because I've kind of had to bounce back and forth between the various manuals, between the single wheelie bar, the one for the actual floating body mount kit, and then the one for the Apollo itself. And it hasn't been rocket science, but I've had to, you know, take a few things on, put a few things on, take a few things off, so on and so forth. The manuals and stuff are just fantastic. But, you know, we look at like some of these images, especially for the floating body mount kit, when you kind of just start lining things up and you zoom in and you look at like, okay, should this part go this way or face that way? You know, this is revision 1 of their actual manual for this. So I'm sure they have a brand new manual coming out that will just cover everything step by step, including how to put in like the forward mounted servo option and all that. So that will make life a lot easier. So what else do we have on the 2023 here? Well, we talked about the forward mounted servo, the floating body mount kit, single wheelie bar, and then everything else that comes with that. But we also have things like the medium length, short, big bore shocks in the back. You know, using these shorter shocks is pretty much just the way everybody is going now. It's just seems like it's just more controllable. You know, you don't have these big buggy shocks that you have limited like crazy, and you got plastic spacers in there and everything, and it just gets real clunky and all that kind of stuff. So I've had a super great experience with the DC1, you know, running with the short shocks, and you know, it's pretty great that you've already got shock towers and stuff that are made to handle the short shocks, even though they basically just released this new one here to work with the actual Apollo. And I mean, if you take a look at the actual shock placement there, I mean, you could stand it up a little bit, but because you got one more hole over here on the arm to bring it up, but they're pretty much just making those holes in there and putting that last hole in there so you can reuse everything that you have, because you can see how integrated this entire back shock tower is with like the wheelie bar coming through, the transmission plate that it is attached to that goes through here and attaches to the transmission. And then of course you've got all of the actual wheelie bar kit options there that connect to the back of the shock tower as well. So pretty integrated piece of equipment. Now the block we were talking about is pretty cool, and you can see how there is an actual key here. So the block has like a piece of metal that basically pokes through the frame right here, and then the block is secured with that and then 2 screws right here. These holes right here are completely open, so you basically just take your screws all the way up through and you go right into the block, and that way you have, I think Dustin says, you know, you don't have long screws going through there, like 2-inch, 2.5-inch screws, whatever, which, you know, in a crash could bend, and then you're trying to get this long screw out of everything, and that would really not be very good. So the parts on the Team Gfrp are just awesome. These molded arms up here up front, I mean, they literally sound like metal, and they kind of look like metal, just how great of a product they are. Just really, really love them. You can see that we've got the forward mounted bulkhead on here to put the bumper and the servo. We haven't done anything like that yet. We're getting to that point. I mean, I had everything built up and just took it all off and slapped it on here, which was, you know, like I said, not hard, a little bit time consuming just because of the amount of work. You know, if you build one of these cars from scratch, any drag car, you're just going to realize that you think it's going to be a 2 or 3 hour job. But when you're 4 or 5 hours into it, you realize that you have another 4 or 5 hours to go, which is probably what we're looking at here to mount the electronics, get everything set up, mount the body, paint the body. Yeah, we've got some work to do on the old Apollo here for sure, but it's going to be exciting. I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to go full castle or not, kind of digging that kind of a setup, because this will be a lighter car than I ever had. So if I'm ever going to get a chance to run the Mama Max 8S again, it would be in this car, because I could take like that 65 gram weight penalty pretty easy with this actual car. So that might be the way that we go. go, at least to start, and then we could always just switch out the electronics down the road if we wanted to. Of course, we'll be putting a Castle 1412 in here. And I mean, you know, that's it. Like, I'm pretty excited about everything to get this thing out and actually see what it can do. You know, I am enjoying the DC-1. It's going to be racing hopefully tonight as long as the rain holds out, and we'll have plenty to talk about on that. I've been running a lot of the stuff on the DC-1 as far as oils, spring rates, and everything else that I've learned from the Gfrp group and that we've been running in here, and it seems to be kind of like a good Midwest setup for our surfaces and everything, and pretty much all my buddies are running the same thing too. And you know, that's one of the biggest things you want to do is just see what everybody else around you is running. You know, asking online and stuff is great, but you know, at some point you want to get a good starting point on what everybody else is doing, and then you know, you'll have to put in some work and see what you can get accomplished. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's a quick look at the 2023 conversion kit so far, and I hope you guys are doing well, and we will be back on the next video. Peace.